So, hope everyone had a great weekend and let's get straight into it. I think there's a lot of opportunities on every single asset class, really, on the future side and even on the FX side. So, I'm going to get into everything, but I'm going to start off with indices. Now, indices played out exactly how we talked about. At the beginning of the week, I said that we would probably have some sort of push up. Now, did I think we were going to have this big of a push up here on ES or NQ? Admittedly, not. I wanted to kind of see how more of a shallow pullback, but the reality is we don't really know how deep a pullback is going to be. And that's why we just trade what we see because even during this move up, we were anticipating the bullish prices on NQ on this specific day to that first objective, right? And then once we started breaking down, we talked about how this is probably going to be the weekly high of that weekly candle. Now, that's exactly what happened. The market formed a high and then we flipped bearish exactly like we talked about. So it's just nice. Again, these are just good examples to see during the weekly candle, during a higher time frame candle. It may sometimes you could have a bullish bias intraday, and then whenever the bearish bias is ready, then you can go ahead and flip. This is the power of understanding. A weekly candle might take a day, 2 days, 3 days to form a top wick and then end up flipping. So when you understand this, you don't have to be the person who catches that top wick. You could be the person who waits for the backside structure, like we did in this example, right? We waited on the 4 hour time frame. And then when the 4 hour time frame broke structure, when the daily candle formed a bearish EBP, we had clear directional bias. And I said we'd probably take out the week slow and the intra-week slow, which we ended up doing on NQ and ES going into the end of the week, which played out beautifully. Now, what can we anticipate going into the new week? I'll say this. I do think that now that we broke back below this very pivotal structural low, I do think that now we're going to have the same type of price action where you see how we have we had the open, we had a run up. I'm sorry, we had the opening price, we had the run up, then we create the bottom wick, the top wick in here, and then we ended up flipping bearish. I think we're going to get something very similar going into the new week. Now, how deep of a pullback? We never really know how deep of a pullback this is going to provide. Like, do we come all the way back up in here? I don't think so, to be honest. I do think that maybe at the very least, maybe we come. It also depends how we open up because we could have a gap down. So we'll see. But I do think ultimately this is going to be where my eyes are being directed into. I do think we're fine. We talked about this level for a very, very long time. And I think now it was such a headache. Like we were bearish from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 4 weeks, a whole month, and sometimes again, if this was like a 5 minute candle, if this was an hourly candle, it's not that long. On the higher time frame, and this is why I know a lot of people don't like higher time frame, do you really want to wait like 1 week, like 4 weeks total for a move like this? Now, obviously, this is a much bigger move. This is like 400, 500 point type move on ES and on NQ, it's a very big move, but at the end of the day, there's opportunities on the intraday basis. So this week, I'm anticipating that we're gonna head down into these areas in here. So on NQ, that would be 23,442. On ES, it's going to be that 6,389. So again, on the weekly candle, I'm looking for the price to open up, and then we'll see. Hopefully, we don't have any massive gap down, because as always, there's always a war news over the weekend. So hopefully that doesn't trigger anything in terms of affecting the price action in that manner. So I still think that we have more downside on ES and NQ. I do think now that we did break out of that kind of consolidation and we had a closure below that pivotal swing low, I do think now we're going to have hopefully, again, you never know for sure, but hopefully we now start to have clear price action down to these lows. And it should not be as choppy as here because now we've broken down a key structural low. And what I really don't want to see is I really don't want us to have any massive like pullback up into the range. Like I really don't, because then you can kind of get the idea that this might be like, some sort of run on stops and push up. But again, the way that we close, the way that the market structure has been looking, this looks like, again, hopefully we don't gap down. This looks like we're ready to just completely fall off, to be honest, down into these areas. So that's what I'm watching for on ES and Q. Pretty straightforward. Now, gold was interesting because gold, so many people were talking about how gold's going to rally and push up and all this stuff. And we talked about how, like, once we were at this fair value gap, this is kind of like the near-term play. And then from there, we just completely toppled over and we started to respect this swing high, swing low. The market pushed up, we formed a potential lower high. We broke back down, broke this swing low, and we created an imbalance. The market came in, retested that, and we started to tumble over. Um, just like insane price action on gold, to be honest. For the new week, though, I do think, Again, I'm not really interested in this one, but because you have such a big drop that maybe you see some sort of relief move, but I do think that there's potential still more downside on gold, but we'll see. This could end up just being a really big consolidation, but yeah. Now let's get straight into FX, and I'll kind of end it there. Now on FX, I even said it like during the week. I was kind of usually when you have like really big ranges like this, the next following week might just be some sort of consolidation or whatever. Now we do have an inside bar. So an inside bar is a candle that closes within the prior candle's range, right? We have that on Euro and we have that on GBP USD. So here is my thing. Do we have a potential? I want to see if we're going to have any potential like continued downside. I'm sorry, let me go back to the euro. If we have any continued downside, because right now we're still at this bearish order block slash breaker, right? We have this key level, the market rally, we have this volume imbalance that we're retesting. So we're retesting still at a resistance point, right? So I'm not gonna think just because we had a bullish candle close like this, it's automatically going to be a situation where we don't have that continued downside move. If we go to DXY, it's the same thing. We're kind of coming up and retesting. Now the only concern is I don't want this to turn into a consolidation where we have this is pretty much the top end of the range, and then the euro possibly, this is the bottom end of a new range that's going to be created. But because the way that the euro looks on the higher time frame, I just a monthly candle closure would have been a little bit better if I'm being honest, but like we don't want to wait obviously for like another like 10 days. I'm gonna just I'm going to stick with this structure, right? We have swing high, swing low, market took out liquidity, and we broke back below. So I think that at the very least, we will have a move lower down into, at the very least, that's 1.13477s. If we go to the daily time frame, I will say this, ideally, I don't want like we could rally up one more time, maybe take out Friday's high and like reject. And I want to see some sort of bearish confirmation in here on either the daily time frame perspective, or we get some sort of clear daily structure to the downside, and then we could target these lows down into this area. So I'm gonna wait for this setup in here, but I'm not gonna try to look for an aggressive short in this area. I want to wait for the market to show me that we're going to reject even further on this week. And then once we do that, I'll be interested in looking for potential sells on the euro. So that's kind of my game plan going into the new week, because we're inside of such a clear structure. We have this clear level. We're trading. We're going to open up near resistance again, assuming no gap downs, and then we have the lower low point in here, which is 1.141s, and then we have this potential level down here, 1.13508. So these are the two downside levels that I'm watching for, and you guys already know I am going to be looking for identifying this potential scenario right there down into those rejection blocks in here. So we'll see what happens. I do think we have good opportunities throughout the week, and yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting 100%. I do think we have multiple opportunities, whether it's with FX or whether it's just with indices. My main focus is going to be indices, because I do think usually after a long consolidation, the breakout is usually pretty aggressive. So we'll see. Hopefully, again, we don't have any massive gap down into the level, because some weeks we've been having that. If we do have a massive gap down, it kind of ruins the trade idea for us, but we'll see what happens. But if anything comes up throughout the week, as always, I'll update you guys in Telegram. So yeah, hope everyone has a great trading week.